Now from Atlanta News First Plus, this is Sports Tonight.
Welcome, Brett.
What's up, man?
This is Sports Tonight on a Friday. I'm sports producer Scott Pennyman. What do you think we want to talk about first?
You're not gonna say my name, my
I'm
title,
sorry.
my
I'm
anything?
sorry.
I don't get the love.
I'm sorry, Brett. You get the love. Go for it.
Well, no, you always give everybody such a good intro. You're like a hype man before a wrestling match. I was waiting
Don't call
for
me
mine.
like Michael Buffer or anything like that, man. You know.
We'll just call me producer Brett Gilbert.
All right, Brett.
Produce a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Working on the SEC wrap-up show that we'll have tomorrow after the Georgia game, and today I'm on this. So we're doing a little bit of everything.
Busy man, man. Busy man. Must be nice to be so important, man. You got a lot going on.
Yeah, you would think.
It's hard to get Brett to, look, for folks who don't know, it's really hard to get Brett to do this show, man. I mean, you pull Brett, man, he's like, look, man, I got 55 different things to do, man. I have to produce.
You called me on a rough one today, but we're here now, and we're talking baseball first. Which,
I'm sorry. We're back on it, man. All right, so
we're talking baseball first, which is my favorite thing to talk about. So let's hit it.
So, Braves. Ooh, man. I sat here yesterday on this show, and I predicted a Braves win.
Did you?
I thought they would. I thought they had some heart, man. I thought they would find a way to get it back here to Truist Park.
They did not.
And find a way to win. That did not happen, obviously,
it did not.
As Philly took it to him again. Ellie over there saying she was right. Okay. We get it. You picked Philly yesterday, and I picked the Braves. I was wrong. Now they're going home. Brett, what do you think about that?
I mean, what is there to think? It's one of the biggest collapses in recent memory. I mean, that was arguably the best offense we've seen in, 20, 30, 40 years, maybe ever.
Woo.
Ever. I mean, they broke records left and right. You had guys like Ronald Acuna doing things that had never been done before, and then you get to the postseason, and you can muster a total of 8 runs across 4 games. 2 runs a game isn't going to get it done in the postseason. I mean, it's just not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's at the end of the day. I've heard people, come after manager Snitker. I've heard everything. But at the end of the day, if you're scoring 2 runs a game, I mean, you're not going to win games. I don't care who your manager is. I don't care what who you put in to pinch hit late in must-win situations. You just got to score more. I mean, that's the bottom line. And so this is a team all year long that was predicated on offense, and then they couldn't do that in the postseason.
Yeah, for me, that was the most disappointing part. I mean, just when you think about how well they swing the bats the entire season.
Yeah.
Just seemed like they never could come up with that clutch hit in the series.
And that was the biggest thing, was with runners in the scoring position, right? I mean,
right.
They could occasionally get a single here and there, but when someone was ahead of a hitter on base, I mean, it was just nothing. They were ice cold from the plate. I wrote it down earlier, 3 for 18 in this series with runners in scoring position. They had 34 strikeouts across the series. I mean, that's just bad.
Even up to the, last night when you look, I think it was either the 7th or 8th inning when they had
bases
loaded. And Acuna, he hit a deep ball there. And
I thought that was it. I will say, in that moment off the bat, I was like, all right, this is the moment that the Braves turn this series on its head. Bottom 8, they're going to do this and then close it out in the top of 9, bring it back with all the momentum to Atlanta. And then, of course, it, fly out at the warning track. Deep, loud fly out. About 40,000 Phillies fans peed their pants a little bit there for a minute, but it just wasn't enough. It felt like the whole series, the Braves were waiting for that type of moment. They kind of got it in Game 2 with Riley, but they just could never get that big hit that we've seen them do over and over and over again this year. They just never found it in the most important time of the year.
And that's what I was going to say. I was going to say that hit sort of just kind of encapsulated what the entire series was all about, I thought. I mean, just missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Imagine he hits a grand slam in that situation, or imagine he hits one off the wall in there and runs score. I mean, it could have changed the complexion of the rest of the series, but it just seems like Philly, when you watch these guys, and I said it yesterday, it just really makes you wonder, is this a situation where Philly just kind of has their number, right? I mean, they just know. And look, all these teams, I mean, well, I guess I'll be fair because there's a lot of high-seeded teams in this baseball playoff. They got bounced, right? I mean,
yeah, there are. But Strider said it himself. He said that's not an excuse.
Right.
Look at what the Astros did. I think Snicker brought that up as well. Look at what the Astros did. They had this off time. They didn't struggle to
That's true.
score runs.
That's true.
And, Strider said, if you have 5 days to make this adjustment and you can't, that's on you. I mean, you're a professional athlete. This is what you're paid to do.
That's true.
You just have to be able to do that. I mean, we can talk about, what the buy structure and everything should be all day long. But at the end of the day, I mean, you got one job, and you got to do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was tough to watch. I mean, it's obviously disappointing when you get into this point in the year. You want I thought they would win it all. I'm not going to lie. I mean,
That was the goal.
I thought this was a World Series championship team.
Could have been.
But I feel like it could have been. But they do fall short. And so when you kind of look ahead for maybe just moving forward as we go into next season, I guess I'll ask what's next for the team, right? I mean, but they'll come back, compete next year, and they'll probably be a really good team again next year. But just when you think about that's back-to-back seasons, losing to the Phillies, losing to the same team, when you think about any sort of changes that they could make or just any sort of, roster things, or what do you think is the plan moving forward or should be the plan moving forward?
I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe this sounds dumb, but I don't know if you change anything. If you're a front office looking at this team, it's like, look, we won 100 and however many games it ended up being, one of the best seasons in franchise history, one of the best seasons in baseball history. I think you just continue with this roster. I mean, like I keep saying it, but the players just have to get it done in the postseason. I mean, they are obviously very, very capable, good hitters up and down this lineup. So it's not like you can there's not a lot of places here where you look and you're like, well, we could, swap, get
like
a better
holes.
player at third base. Yeah, exactly. There's not a lot of holes up and down the roster. I mean, you have pretty much really talented, like top 10, top 5, top 3 players at every single position. So I don't know what changes you make. I mean, I'm sure like every team they'll, swap a few bullpen guys here and there. I don't know what Charlie Morton's contract situation is. I mean, they could probably, swap the back end starters back into the rotation a little bit. But I think your major pieces are going to stay. I mean, most of their big guys they have locked up for 6-7 years anyway. So I think for the most part, it's going to be and probably should be the same team next year. And you just hope that they can get over the hump.
Just got to find a way, right, to be the team that really could be, like I say, from a psychological standpoint, if a team sort of, and let's be real, they handily beat the Braves this year. I mean, this could have very easily been a sweep when you look at it. When you look at Game 2, they had to rally late to win that game. With some clutch hits.
One, maybe 2 good innings this entire series. I mean, for the rest of the time, the Phillies were by far the better team. Right.
So I think when you look at the series, it could have been a sweep. So really back-to-back years, 2 bad losses to Philly, too.
Yeah.
Didn't even make it the distance. And I think that's sort of the point where you start wondering, is this team in their head? Do they feel like that this is a team that they can beat? And psychologically, sometimes, I know anyone who's ever been a part of sports and played sports or even covered sports, sometimes the psychological part can be a lot better, a lot worse than the physical part. I think the Braves, man for man on their roster, when you look at their team, they look like they should be able to beat anybody. But when the same team beats you back-to-back years, sometimes there's a mental hurdle that you have to get over, because if they play them again in the playoffs next year, first time something bad happens in one of those games, mentally you start thinking, here we go again.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I think the Braves would rather face literally any other team in the first round of the playoffs next year. I don't care what their record is. If a team would finish this with 120 wins next year that is not the Philadelphia Phillies, I think the Braves would rather face them than the Phillies next year, honestly. I mean, just because we've seen what's happened 2 years in a row, and, they're in their head. If they weren't before, they definitely are at this point.
Yeah, and sometimes, like I say, that could be the worst thing, because when you're playing a team that's in your head like that and they're talented, they feel like they can beat you, and what comes next, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we started off the show. You were talking a little bit about the SEC show tomorrow, right? That you were hard to work on.
Yes, sir.
We've got UGA tomorrow at Vandy.
Premier matchup going into it tomorrow. Let me tell you, we don't know which way this one's going to go, Scott.
Right, and honestly, I don't even want to talk too much about the matchup itself, because they're playing Vanderbilt, and I think whether they were playing Vanderbilt at home or in Vanderbilt or on the road. Let's be honest,
this is basically going to be a home game.
Right. I mean, it's going to be a home game. But look, let's be real. It doesn't matter where this game was played. I don't care if they were playing this game on Pluto, UGA is going to be the better football team, and they're going to win this football game tomorrow. Make no mistake about it, right? I know my predictions haven't been so great, especially since I predicted the Braves to win, but let's be real, they're not going to lose this game tomorrow to give to Vandy. But I think the real question here is when you look at I got attacked when I put this on social media this week when I said I thought UGA, without question in my mind, is the best team in the country. And right now I think they're rounding in the championship form, and I think they're going to win the third straight championship.
Who were people throwing at you as the team that you were like missing out on there?
That's what I'm saying. To me, there's
because I'm genuinely curious. There's a good tier right behind UGA. You know, your Washingtons, your Ohio States, your Michigans, but up until last week, maybe you could have argued that. But watching the way Georgia handled Kentucky, I think that was the statement. Like, yeah, we're still that Georgia team.
I agree, man. I mean, just really watching them right now. I've seen USC play. Mm-hmm. I follow Ohio State. I've seen them play. Michigan, I've seen them play a few times. So I've seen some heavy hitters throughout the country play this season, and I still don't see a team that's more complete than UGA from top to bottom. I mean, as far as quarterback play, as far as how they're coached game in and game out, it doesn't really matter. I feel like no matter who wears that Georgia uniform, they're going to be coached well by Kirby Smart. They're going to play well because obviously they're all 4- and 5-star players. But he puts those guys in the correct situations week in and week out to win football games. So I think when you look around the country, even I think Alabama's playing a little better, but they're not. They ain't it, you know, when you think about teams. Right. I don't think that there's a more complete team than UGA. And right now, I just don't see any reason that they won't be holding the trophy for the third straight year when you look at just their pedigree and they just know how to win.
I think, and it helps them too, that this is probably the weakest the SEC's been in a long time. Mm-hmm. I will say there's not as many like just bad teams in the SEC, right? Like you look in the East, and really Vanderbilt is probably the only bad team. Like South Carolina's not bad. Missouri's certainly not bad.
Right.
Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, they're all obviously right there. You know, I guess Tennessee still technically has a path to take the East, but
they do.
But I mean, with Joe Milton, I'm a Tennessee fan, so I've watched enough of their games to tell you, with Joe Milton at quarterback, they are not going to be even the threat they were to Georgia last year.
Come on, man, you were all excited about Joe Milton.
I was. I thought maybe he got accurate, and then
oh man.
And then I watched him play a few games, and I said, oh, well, that didn't happen.
Hey, look, I feel you because me being an Ohio State fan and their quarterback situation, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, you know, coming out of the East, Georgia's path's way easier than it's been in the past years. And then at the end of the season, when they face off in the SEC championship, it's probably going to be Bama. Could still be LSU, but neither of those teams really scare me right now. I mean, I guess anything can happen. But Georgia's path to the playoffs looks pretty easy right now. And they'll probably be the 1 seed again when they get there, which would mean they'd face the 4th team.
Yeah.
I mean, they're set up probably better than they were this time last year, because this time last year we still had that Tennessee game marked on the calendar.
Yeah.
We still had an SEC championship marked on the calendar that could be a tough game, and neither of those look as scary right about now.
There's one team I'm kind of watching, though, that I won't declare them as a candidate right now. I won't declare them as a national championship candidate, but they're just kind of a team I've kind of got my eye on right now, is Oregon.
Yeah, they look good.
So obviously they're coached by Dan Lanning, who was at UGA. He was the defensive coordinator, I believe, under Kirby Smart.
That dude is fiery.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Have you seen his speeches?
Yeah.
He gets those guys ready.
He seems like the perfect fit for what they are trying to do. And that's one team I'm watching really closely, because when you think about Alabama, right, in all those years Alabama was at the top, and who has kind of replaced them recently as the team at the top of college football? Georgia, right? Georgia's coached by Kirby Smart, who was for years under Nick Saban at Alabama.
I see where you're going.
Right? Mm-hmm. So now you have Oregon up there in the northeast part of the country. I mean, yeah, the northwest. Northwest. You can tell I didn't do that well in social studies. But no, in the northwest part of the country, and they're just kind of just quietly going about their business. They got Bo Nix at quarterback, and they're just kind of just running
quietly
right
putting
now.
up 70 points a week.
Right. They're just quietly blowing teams out and just running through teams. And they're coached by Dan Lanning, who was under Kirby Smart at UGA. So like you said, you see where I'm going with this. Sometimes the team to take you down is the team that was, it's kind of a guy who probably followed your pattern of being a head coach, right?
Because the student becomes the master.
Exactly. The student became the master. That's what happened with Nick Saban, because Kirby Smart was under him for a lot of years, sort of learned a lot of what he did and a lot of what he did to become successful as a head coach, and then mixed in some of his own things to become probably the best coach in college football right now. And that's why I say keep an eye on Dan Lanning, because I'm sure he did the same things under Kirby Smart. He's taken that recipe out to Oregon, and they're just blowing teams up right now in the Pac-12, right?
No, they look really good. They look really, really good. They're fun to watch. Bo Nix has never looked better. They're a good team.
So that's one of the teams I think is kind of bubbling under. I've seen USC play a few times. Their defense doesn't do. Caleb Williams is as good as any player in the country in the last few years, right? But I don't really see them defensively being able to come up with stops. I mean, they're a Lincoln Riley-led team, so they're going to give up about 50.
Yeah, I mean, they gave up 40-something the other night to Arizona.
Right.
Went to triple overtime.
Right, and they're not right. And even Colorado put up some points against them too, and I guess 41, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't see USC being able to win a national championship for that very reason, because you're not going to be able to throw up 40 and 50 points against everyone. And then Ohio State, that's a team who I follow, and I think they're talent-wise able to play with anybody in the country. Until they do it in one of those big games, they haven't beat Michigan last couple years, lost to Georgia last year. They've had trouble in these big games. Their quarterback plays a little bit shaky this season too, so I think right now the team with the least amount of questions about them is Georgia.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless Milroe gets it together at Alabama and they sort of change that thing. Look,
if Alabama had a quarterback, it's still a different story. We're not writing off Alabama as not scary team, for sure.
Right. Old man Saban is always somebody. You never count old man Saban out, I guess is what I'm saying.
Before we move on, really quickly, because I know we want to talk Falcons.
For sure.
I do want to talk about the game really quick. Obviously, Georgia's probably going to win. What's something you want to see from tomorrow, though?
I guess when you really look at it, maybe just, for me, it's a week-to-week thing about quarterback Carson Beck. Just seeing from week to week, can he be dominant? That's kind of what Stetson Bennett was last year, right? I mean, he was a guy week in and week out that you can count on to make the plays he needs to make. I actually think Carson Beck is more talented than Stetson Bennett.
I would agree from what we've seen so far.
Right, from just an overall talent standpoint. So I just really would like to see him continue to climb. I don't know how much you're going to be able to measure the defense tomorrow in that game just because of who they're playing.
Yeah.
But I think Carson Beck, obviously what he could continue to do at the quarterback position, continue to make plays downfield, continue to find his top targets. And if they do that, I think there's nobody who they can't beat.
I'd like to see Ladd McConkey get a little bit more involved. Yeah. We saw him in the Auburn game or the South Carolina game? That was his first game back. I believe it was Auburn.
Yeah.
Where he had 3 or 4 big catches. I think all of them on third downs to move the sticks.
A couple sideline catches.
Yeah. Last week he only had 1 catch. I think for later in the season, playoffs and everything, you want him to be up to speed. So I'd like to see him get a lot more involved tomorrow. But we can move on and talk Falcons.
No, sure, yeah. I mean, they'll. I'm pretty sure that they'll find a way to get that one done too. Now, I don't know if I'm as sure that the Falcons will find a way to get to 4-2. Although I do think they play the Washington Commanders, and I'm not really impressed with their quarterback play with Sam Howell at the quarterback position. I think the Falcons are going to get this to 4-2.
I think it's going to be an interesting game. Falcons are favored at home. It's 2.5 points, so that would tell you, most people see this as a pretty even matchup. Falcons has a slight edge at home.
That's key.
I think this lines up well for the Falcons, though, when you look at what they do well versus what the Commanders do well. The Commanders give up a lot of sacks. A lot of sacks. And the Falcons don't have an elite pass rush, but they have a decent pass rush. So I would expect for that to continue. Sam Howell's on pace to be sacked just as much as David Carr was back in the day. And then on the flip side,
his fault, by the way.
On the flip side of that, Ritter, the first several weeks of this year, first 4 weeks or so, was taking a lot of pressure and taking a lot of sacks. And then I think the biggest difference in the Houston game last week, where he looked so good, wasn't necessarily. I mean, it was him. I don't want to take credit away from him. He looked a lot better. He played really well.
Anytime you got to preface something by saying, I don't want to do this,
No. I'm just the unsung hero, I think, was the offensive line because all day long, Desmond Ridder had a clean pocket to throw from. Wasn't pressured very often.
Sure.
Was never sacked. And what do you know? He goes out and puts up over 300 yards, looks the best he probably has in the NFL yet. So I think if they can continue that into Washington, who does not have as good of a pass rush as the Texans did, then Ridder might be able to string something together here because the Commanders' pass defense is nothing to be afraid of. One of their better safeties just went down last week with a broken shoulder, so they're going to have a rookie or a second-year player taking over in that spot. So this is a very beatable defense.
And that's shameful, by the way, because when you consider Washington has 4 high first-round picks on that defensive line with Chase and Allen and those guys and Payne and Sweat. That they should look like the 49ers, right? I mean, for years the 49ers
well,
had
up front they're good. I think it's what's behind them that's kind of the concern.
Hey, look, I mean, if the guys up front are doing their job and what's behind you shouldn't matter a whole lot, right? I mean, they should make life easier.
It should make life easier. You're absolutely right.
But they don't really seem to be as dominant as they need to be. I mean, like I've never seen that front 4 dominate. In all these years I've been watching the Washington Commanders since they've had those 4 first-round picks up front, I've never seen them be dominant. I mean, Chase Young, like you've seen spots where he was really good, and Allen and Payne and the rest of those guys, and he even Sweat, he's made some plays and everything like that. But as a collective unit, I've never seen that Washington Commanders defensive line dominate. So for me, that's why I'm picking the Falcons to win this game. I think it'll be another close one. I think Washington will come, they'll compete, and they'll play hard. But I just think when it gets down to it, I think the Falcons being at home, and you said them being at home was a key. I think that is a key because if this game was in Washington, I might lean more towards Washington. But with this being a home game in this situation, I do like the Falcons to win the game for that reason because I think they're going to make a few more plays. And Ridder, once again, last week showed me that he has it in him to make some plays downfield when he needs to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Falcons also kind of have a secret weapon. They have Taylor Heineke, who has been the Commanders quarterback for the past several years. They have a bit of a new offense there with Eric Bieniemy leading up as offensive coordinator, but it's still Rivera's offense. So he might be able to give the Falcons defense a little bit of tips and tricks along the way.
All right, so I tell you what here. Since we're already going down the lane of talking about the Falcons, we talked about Desmond Ridder having a really good game last week, really being put in a position to where he had to be an NFL quarterback. He had to drive his team down late to get the game-winning field goal, and so that was really big for him last week. So he spoke a lot this week about the matchup coming up against Washington on Sunday. So let's take a little bit of a listen to what he had to say.
What will be some of the keys to keep the pass and attack going? Y'all, I think it was 11 or 10 guys you all moved the ball around to, and you got the production that Coach, I think, wanted.
Yeah, obviously first, with everything we do, it starts up front. Those guys gave me a great amount of time back there to sit back, make my reads, and deliver a ball. And so, the challenge this week is obviously, their front 4, front 5 are some good dudes up there rushing the passers. So we'll be taking care of them. And then, just within myself, never trying to do too much, just taking what they give me. I felt like I did a great job of that against Houston, and obviously it showed.
Was the plan to diversify as much as you all did, or that you were just going to where the ball, where your checks were taken?
Like I said, and I've told you guys before, it's just kind of, where the play takes me. When we try to start to, force people the ball, that's when, things start to go a little south. That's when you start hesitating in your read. The ball might be a tick late, might leave it a tick inside, and that could end up, negative for us as a team. So for me, it's just about going through, playing each play. Obviously, we have schemes and designs to get people the ball, and but within that, I'm still just going to play the play.
How much pressure does that take off you to know you have all those options, though, out there?
Yeah, it's huge. Like we've said from the beginning, since draft, since, we've had all these guys. And we got weapons everywhere. It takes the pressure off me of not, thinking that I have to do everything or I have to do too much. More so rather than just get the guys the ball. It doesn't have to be a 50-yard ball downfield, but it could just be a check down. And they're going to take the ball and go make one guy miss.
Speaking of options, you have a new one today with Van Jefferson. What are your thoughts about how long do you expect that to take for you guys to get something, a connection, a familiarity?
Yeah, obviously, never thrown with him or done anything before. Coming into a new offense for him, so obviously it's going to take a little time to get connected, get on the same page, make sure that we're communicating. And then, the physical part of it, I'm going to see out there and practice how routes are run, how he gets in and out of his breaks. And then, like I said, it then just becomes a mental part. Can we catch him up as quick as possible to get him out there and get him on the field playing?
Can you take us through that process of
coming in the off season? That's where you're able to bring them in for a day, just kind of run just your base routes, and like I said, just get a feel for him, feel how he's coming in and out breaks and stuff. But yeah, it'll just be throughout getting little things in practice, after practice, and then obviously getting in the film room with him, just catching them up on our game plan.
That's what jumps off the screen when you take a look at that Washington defense.
Yeah, obviously, like I said, the front four, the front guys up front four, front five. They pay those guys a lot of money to get out to the quarterback, and they do a great job of that. So it'll be a great challenge for our front five up front. And then obviously in the back end, a little banged up in the back end, so they're rotating a whole bunch of guys. But they've done a great job of kind of being savvy, just, letting everything be underneath and kind of attacking to the ball.
Drake said after the game that he was trying to spark the offense with that big play they made where the helmet fell off and he was showing all that emotion. What is that spark that he provides exactly?
Yeah, that's huge. That's just energy. That's momentum, not only from him, but then it gets the fans involved. And then, like I said, after the game, once those fans are involved, it gets everyone going. So, whether it's, the catch or, the dramatics after the play, whatever it is, it just gets everyone going. It gets the energy of the team, the offense, and everyone flowing.
Have you ever seen him that fired up? He seems pretty cool-headed off the field. Have you seen that demeanor of, like, maybe he turns it up a little bit more on the field?
Yeah, there's been times where, both good and bad, where, you can see him pop off sometimes. Like I said, we talked back last week, a couple weeks ago with Mac. Like, it's an emotional game. And so that was an emotional moment, big time in the game, and, he just let it show.
Following that up, is there almost frustration from what's all that's been talked about, not catching the balls or just finally getting the touches? Is it just kind of all wrap up in one?
Yeah, I'm not Drake, so I couldn't tell you, what he was thinking during that moment. All I know is, like I said, I was juiced up and excited just to see him, the energy that he brought and the passion that he plays with.
Were the other players talking about just that emotion, that play? I mean, it seemed like I haven't seen that much emotion out of a Falcon player in a while.
No, I mean, really, you guys, we see a lot of emotion at practice, make big plays. Obviously, in some games last year, get out, kind of do the same thing. But like I said, it's just great to see guys play with that emotion, play with that energy and that passion, to be out there no matter at what point in the game, whether it's first play, last play, in between, to just be out there playing with energy and passion.
Storm comes into the game midway through. Do you say anything to him, like try to give him confidence when he's coming into the game, because it's just tough to come in cold like that, and the team had been pass protecting well before that, obviously good luck.
Yeah, just let him know, hey, it's time to roll. Numbers call, it's time to go. That's for anyone that comes in. But like you said, he did a heck of a job coming in there, stepping in for Caleb, and, was able to, kind of smoothly run the offense, without any hiccups from that end.
To that end, Arthur made the comment that he didn't feel like he had to call the game around him, and sometimes you feel that when you have to, especially with that offensive line because they work so closely together. Is that something that you felt too, that it was like there was a seamless transition from him to, or from Caleb to him?
Yeah, and that's huge. That's for everyone, no matter what position comes in, being able to make a seamless transition, to not have to alter your game any on offense, defense, or special teams. Just being able to go out there and, that's a testament to not only his hard work, but all the guys in that offensive room, keeping all those guys in tune, in sync, no matter whether you come up from practice squad or whatever, that, you have to know the game plan inside and out. So that's a tribute and testament to, the work that Storm's put in and all those guys in the O-line room.
Always good to hear from Desmond Ridder. Brett, what's on your mind?
I got another NFL quarterback that's on my mind this week. Deshaun Watson, up in your area, up in Cleveland, medically cleared to play 2 weeks ago now. I think 13, 14 days ago now. But after missing a game and then having a bye week, he has already been ruled out for this upcoming game, that fully guaranteed contract is looking worse and worse.
See, I'm not going to even say anything about that because, I'm from Cleveland, and all my Cleveland friends are going to call me haters if I say anything bad about Deshaun Watson.
Bad.
But it is what it is. Look, we're heading to the weekend. This is Football Friday. Enjoy your football this weekend. We'll be back here next week with some more Sports Tonight. See ya.